Welcome to the Procure to Pay demonstration. I'm going to take you all the way through from, probably follow it a little here, the sourcing request. So I have a sourcing request that come through from purchasing we'll talk about, the creation of an RFQ, submitting that to the suppliers and receiving the quotes back. And then in the process we're going to go through, we're going to award a purchase order. So as a result of, in our case, the best price received back from that RFQ, we're going to order, we are going to create a purchase order for that quantity for that particular item. We can also create RFQs that we can send out for contracts. So for longer term than just a single purchase order, maybe a contract for a year for a particular target quantity. And then we can call purchase orders off against that. So we'll talk a little bit about that difference, and then we'll see a contract as well. And then we will take it through the creation of the purchase order, and then the receipt of that purchase order. Then we'll swap into the accounting mode, take a look at our service, our supplier invoicing, and doing a three-way match, and then also the payment of that invoice through the payable system. So let's start here. We're at the sourcing and contracting homepage, and as we see, we do have a sourcing request, so we're going to take a look at where that came from. It can come from a couple of places. They can come from purchase requests, and that purchase request may have been created from the supply planning. For instance, if it's a component in our manufacturing process that we don't have a preferred supplier for yet, or we don't have any source of supply, then from that purchase request, we can then put a sourcing request on our planning department or purchasing to go out and find us some suppliers for here, or it could be just a product that we always just buy to order, and we always want to go out and get the best price before we buy it. It could also come from a contract. So you can see here from contract. So in the contract work center, you'll get a warning when contracts are about to expire. You'll get a task in your task list, and you can then come into that contract from there, create a new RFQ, saying we need to go and get new prices for the next year for this particular group of items, for instance. In this case, the sourcing request came from a purchase request. We're going to go out and create a new RFQ. I can do it for selected items, so I may have multiple items here. I can select the 2 or 3 items I want to put together onto an RFQ. Or if I have many items, I can assign it to a group and then assign that group to an RFQ as well. So I've already placed an RFQ, so let's go and take a look at that. We'll look at the details that we entered when we created it, and then how we got the quotes back in for that RFQ. So as a summary at the front here, when we created the RFQ from that sourcing request, we put it out to bid to 4 suppliers. I'll tell you how we chose those suppliers in a second. And we obviously asked for the item and the quantity, and we have some dates here. We need the quotes back by 7/20, and the quotes must be valid until the end of August in this case. So let me take a look at the detail here. So this again, just a summary. There are things we can put in here. The buyer can add items if he feels there may be some ancillary items that would be useful, whether they can change the quotes in the submitted one, and whether they can change the quantity on the quote, on the request for quote rather. So here are the items. So again, this is all was all automatically done just by saying create new RFQ from that sourcing request. We then assign bidders or suppliers to it, and we can do that in a couple of ways by just entering suppliers. If I use the proposed bidders tab, then that will show me a list of all the suppliers that we've either issued an RFQ to, that we placed a purchase order on, that we have a contract or have placed a contract with, or we have some agreed list prices. So all of those can be proposed as bidders, and again, I can select those lists on the ones that I want to actually submit this to. So that's really all we need to do to create it, is take our sourcing request, create the RFQ. Most of the information is put in there for you. You add the bidder and then send it to bidders, and that will submit an email if that's how you've defined your communication with the supplier, or it could go through fax, or it could go through print. Now, if you've assigned an email, then what we can do is send an interactive Adobe form along with the email. So in this case, this is a view of the document that went out to the supplier. So there's some general information here, but this is an interactive form, so I can fill in as a supplier, fill in my code ID. I can obviously fill in the prices, and when I can deliver it by, my part number, any comments. I can also put in any terms of my payment terms, some additional comments, and then submit this. I can put in a digital signature as well if I would like to. Now, when I hit submit here, that, as a supplier, that will automatically submit this back to Business by Design and will update this particular RFQ with their quoted prices, delivery date, comments, whatever they've entered onto this form. So hopefully you can see there how automatic this process is. So I was notified as a buyer. If I have a sourcing request, I need to find a buyer. I created the RFQ very easily, selected the suppliers, emailed it out. They can fill in their quotes and email it back, and it will automatically update the RFQ, and I'll show you the results of that now. But I'm hoping you can see the integration there, and everything is tracked all along the way. We'll look at the document flow in a little while. So as this will come out, if they just send in a quote back in the mail or by email, then I can come to this RFQ and enter those quote details. But if it's coming automatically, then it will automatically appear here as a quote. So this one, I think if I take a look at this was one that was created automatically by just sending back that document. You can see here it attaches the original document from the supplier here, and then has put these extracted from that document these prices and the terms and Incoterms and things like that. So very automatic process, minimal user intervention to get the information you require for that RFQ in a timely fashion. And if we'd enter the quote, it would look just exactly that. I just wouldn't have the attachment. Now, very quickly, I can see, kind of the best price. So this is my base price, if you like, and then these are the deviations from that. But we can do a compare quote, so we can compare all of those quotes side by side, so we can very easily see all the information that was entered for each one of those from those suppliers. So we can see here that we have awarded the purchase order to this supplier. We went with the lowest price, but that may not be the only factor. It may be things like lead time. It may be things like terms. So all of those you can take into account, obviously, before you award it. And you can award multiple. So you may want to award half the quantity to one and half to another. So you can sign those. This one we've closed out. This one we've left open for the time being. We may decide to award that to them at a later stage. So those are all the quotes side by side. Very easy way of comparing them, and then by just clicking award, in this case, it created the purchase order for that particular quantity. So if I take a look at the document flow here, then this will show us all the way through from the original purchase request, sourcing request, the request for quotation, a little smaller, all of the quotes, and then we place this purchase order number 425 was automatically placed. There are configuration options you can put in there if you don't want it to go just directly out. It could go to a purchase request first, and then the buyer can convert it to a purchase order. We can also put approvals on purchase orders, so that there are multi-level approvals available, which you can define for a particular product category, how that approval goes, and whether it needs multiple approvals based on value, things like that. So there are other configuration options you can put in at more approval levels before you actually get the purchase order. In this case, we just wanted to create it automatically. So it's automatically created, and it's automatically been emailed to the supplier. So that's taken us through the RFQ process for a purchase order. It's really the same for a contract. And if I take a look at a contract, you can see the only difference would be when we awarded it, it will create a contract, and those typically, I guess, would have multiple items on and would be for a year or 6 months. with different quantities. So that the only difference is really that it creates this contract, and then when we create purchase orders, either directly from supply planning or just by keying a purchase order, then if this is the preferred, we can set the preferred supplier, and it will get those contract prices and terms directly from the contract when we create the purchase order. So here for a contract, we can see, again, we've got the same type of thing, all the terms, but in this case, we have this contract's going to run for a year. It will have multiple items on in this case, and you can see for each one we put target quantities that we were looking for in the RFQ, which they responded to, and the prices for those. But for each line, we can keep track of that, so I can see against an individual line, this is the release history. So this shows us all of the purchase orders and the quantities and the prices and the dates that we've released against this particular contract line. And I can see that summarized on this basic data. So this is our target quantity that we asked for, was 100,000, and so far we've released 1,300 of them for that particular value. Okay? And we can store the supplier lead time in there. We can supply any minimum order quantities and defaults, excuse me, whether we expect a purchase order acknowledgement, for instance, and then over and under delivery tolerances that we will allow. So really that's the only difference between the end of the process is that we can create a purchase order or purchase request and then purchase order, or we can create a contract, and that's what our purchase orders will refer to get prices and terms. So hopefully you can see from that integrated process that everything is tracked all the way through. We know who placed the sourcing request, where it came from, the bidders, we can see all of the prices, we can see from the document flow when the purchase order or the contract was created. So minimal user interface, but lots of information there to be able to, for instance, compare quotes. There are also reports that you can run from purchasing, for instance, to get some idea of the supplier quality and the supplier performance, if you want to use that in helping define who you should award a quote or a contract to. Okay, so we received that, placed that purchase order, so that should be sitting right now in our purchase order request. So if we take a look at our purchase orders, I'll just give you a quick look at that so you can take a look at it, and then we will go ahead and receive it and then put the supplier in this against it. So we're going to look at this order. Here we are, 425, and we can see, let's take a quick look. So you can see right now it's obviously not delivered, not invoiced, it's the status of it. This is the supplier we awarded the contract to, and we have our items, our quantities, our dates, and the prices from that RFQ. So to say that was directly, in our case, it was directly emailed. We'd assigned the communication method with the supplier as email, so that has already been sent to the supplier. Okay, so that kind of takes care of the purchasing piece, if you like, all the way through sourcing request, RFQ, purchase order. Now the purchase order's gone out, that will come in and we're going to receive it. So in our inbound logistics work center, this would probably typically not be the same person that's placing the purchase order, probably be a warehouse manager. But here we can see all of my open purchase orders in this case. Here's our order 425, and we are just going to post the goods receipt against that purchase order. We can have an advanced delivery notification from the supplier, and if we've got that, then we can put out to the warehouse in the execution work center a list of expected receipts. In this case, I'm just going to do that all in one process. So we're going to put in the delivery notification, supplier's advice. I will just propose the quantities. If you do that, you've got multiple lines that can save you some entry, but you can obviously change if I only receive 150, and it will leave the outstanding balance. And we also have the target logistics area, so where in the warehouse, based on our put away rules, are we suggesting this goes, and you can override that if you put it somewhere different. So we've put our quantities in, and then we will just go ahead and save and close that. And now we've created our inbound delivery, and that purchase order has been received. So that is the kind of all the procurement process all the way through to receiving it. If now we move across to our financials area. So now we are in the payables area. If we look at supplier invoicing work center, we'll just go ahead and refresh that. So now this 425, this is our purchase order, and we can see it's been completely delivered and not invoiced. So the flow is really here. I've received the invoice from the supplier. I've come into invoice entry. It showed me all the purchase orders that are out there awaiting invoicing. So I would know, for instance, if I got an invoice for this purchase order that it's not been delivered. So I can track all of that. So here I do know that this one's been completely delivered. So I'm going to create a new invoice against it. And again, it's minimal entry. What it will do is bring up everything that was on the purchase, on the receipt against the purchase order. So the receipt against the purchase order was the first part of the three-way match. So I would just enter the invoice number, the invoice date, which will be used to calculate the payment terms based on the terms here. And then I would enter down here the price on the invoice. Now, if that's different, then there are things that are going to happen. So if I say we've been invoiced at 280, for instance, I'll just recalculate the total amounts. So we've been invoiced for something different. Now, I can set up tolerances in my configuration of things that I will allow in terms of percentage tolerance, in terms of quantity, or in terms of price, and that could be zero, obviously. But if we check this, then it will tell us that we do have some exceptions here. It will show me what those exceptions are. And you can see we do have a price variance. Now, again, depending on the rules that we've set for the authority values for this person, he may or may not be able to just accept this quantity variance. Depends on the tolerances that we've set and the approval levels that he has. We can send a document to purchasing for clarification. So we could forward it to purchasing and say, hey, we put in the PO for 271. There's a price now for 280. Is that okay? Has that been agreed? And get that back, or obviously just make a phone call. But by doing this, we can track it all the way through the system, and we will see the history of all the documentation. If it does come back from purchasing and they say that's okay, I can go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to accept that price variance. And we don't have to do this all at one time. I can save this and come back in when purchasing get back to me. But that still may mean when I try to post it, even though I said it was going to be price variance, purchasing said okay, we've set some rules that say anything over a certain level need to be approved by the CFO, for instance. So you can see this document has been submitted for approval, so that we have lots of controls in place there to track the variances between the purchase order and the supplier invoice. Okay, and even though I've gone to purchasing, we've set the rules in place that anything over a particular percentage needs to go to the CFO to be approved, and that will appear in their approved list. Okay. So now we have created invoices, and they will be in AP. To complete the procure to pay process, in payables, we would do a payment run. So we would run this if we're paying twice a month or once a month, whenever we do our payment runs. And what that will do is you put in the payment date, and it will select all invoices that are due on or before that payment date. Okay. So then it prepares a list of all the payments it's selected based on that parameters you've got. You input rather than your payment run. So these are all the items that are due for payment based on the rules you put through. I can, from here, just go ahead and execute payment, and I can execute them all at once. These are checks. They could also be bank transfers, and we can create a file that we send to the bank from bank transfer. But in this case, I'm going to select this one. I'm going to execute the payment here. And again, dependent upon my approval levels, I may or may not be able to create that check. In this case, it was within my approval level, so it's created the check number and has executed the payment, and then we can go ahead and print the checks. So that's hopefully a quick overview that makes sense to you of all the way through from the sourcing, RFQ, awarding in our case of a purchase order, the receiving of that purchase order, the invoicing, three-way match, and then the payment. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.